Admiral Jack Norris stood on the bridge of the EDS Valiant, staring at the holographic display that showed an unknown vessel approaching Earth's orbit. The ship was unlike anything humans had ever encountered, sleek, with an iridescent hull that seemed to bend light around it. "How long until they reach our defense perimeter?" he asked, his voice calm despite the tension filling the command center. "Approximately 3 hours, sir," Lieutenant Karen Weber replied from her station. "The object is slowing, suggesting deliberate approach rather than a passing trajectory." Jack nodded. After decades of sending signals into space, humanity had prepared for this moment. First contact protocols had been established, military contingencies planned. Yet the reality of an alien vessel in their solar system sent a chill down his spine. "Alert the United Earth Defense Council. I want all orbital platforms at ready status. Not aggressive posture, just ready." On the other side of the solar system, aboard the Zarkonian vessel Dominance, Supreme Legate Vrax observed the blue-green planet with mild curiosity. His race had conquered 17 solar systems across their section of the galaxy, and this would simply be the 18th. "Preliminary scans complete, Supreme Legate," the science officer reported. "The third planet shows signs of primitive civilization. They possess rudimentary space capabilities, but have barely expanded beyond their moon. Their technology appears to be at least 300 cycles behind Imperial standards." Vrax's mouth tentacles curled in amusement. "Another simple annexation, then. Prepare the standard surrender broadcast." Back on Earth, Diplomatic Officer Lisa Montgomery rushed into the newly established First Contact Center. Screens around the room displayed the approaching alien craft from various Earth telescopes and satellites. "We've received a transmission," the communications specialist announced. "It's being translated now." The room fell silent as the alien message played through the speakers. "Attention, primitive world. This is Supreme Legate Vrax of the glorious Zarkonian Empire. Your planet has been claimed by Imperial decree. Surrender your resources and pledge allegiance to Emperor Keth. Resistance will result in planetary pacification. You have one orbital cycle to comply." Lisa exchanged worried glances with her team. "They're jumping straight to demands. No diplomatic overtures. It appears they've already decided our value," General Martinez replied grimly. "Admiral Norris needs to see this immediately." Hours later, after emergency meetings with world leaders, Admiral Norris sat before the global broadcast system. The alien vessel had now parked itself in high Earth orbit, ominously silent since its initial message. "This is Admiral Jack Norris of the Earth Defense Fleet. We acknowledge your presence and request peaceful dialogue. Earth is a sovereign world. We do not recognize your claim and will not surrender our planet or our freedom." He paused, weighing his next words carefully. "I must also deliver this warning. Humanity may seem primitive by your standards, but we have survived and evolved through thousands of years of conflict. War is in our blood. You have no idea what you're getting into. For your own sake, turn around and leave." On the Dominance, Vrax laughed as the human's message was translated. Such pride from a species that hasn't even colonized their own system. "Should we begin landing procedures, Supreme Legate?" his second-in-command asked. "No. Let's demonstrate our power first. Target their primitive orbital constructions. Nothing destructive. Just disable their communications network." The Dominance's weapons officer complied, activating a focused energy beam that lanced toward Earth's largest communications satellite. The beam never reached its target. A previously invisible energy shield flickered into existence, dispersing the attack harmlessly into space. Alarms blared on the Dominance's bridge. "Impossible," Vrax hissed. "They shouldn't have that technology." "Sir," the scanner officer called out, multiple small vessels emerging from the planet's dark side. "They're on intercept course." The first shots of the war were fired moments later, when a Zarkonian defensive system automatically targeted the approaching Earth vessels. The human ships scattered, absorbing the hits on previously concealed shield systems before returning fire. Supreme-legged Vrax watched in disbelief as his supposedly superior vessel shuddered from multiple impacts. "We warned you," came Admiral Norris's voice over the comm. "This was your choice." Supreme-legged Vrax barely escaped the initial skirmish, his damaged ship limping back to the edge of the solar system. His pride hurt more than the ship's systems. How could these primitives have technology capable of damaging a Zarkonian vessel? "Send a priority message to High Command," he ordered, green blood seeping from a cut on his face. "The Earth species possesses unexpected defensive capabilities. Request additional forces for proper pacification." The communication officer nodded, his tentacles working quickly over the controls. "Message sent. Supreme-legged. Response estimated in 6 hours." Meanwhile, in the underground war room beneath Geneva, Earth's military and scientific leaders gathered to assess the situation. "They'll be back," Admiral Norris stated flatly, looking around the table. "And in greater numbers." Dr. Alan Wright, a man with perpetually disheveled hair and tired eyes, pulled up schematics on the main display. "The quantum shield worked better than expected, but it's still not at full capacity. We need more time." "How much time?" General Martinez asked. 2 weeks to reach maximum coverage," Ellen replied. "But even then, we don't know the full extent of their weaponry." Lisa Montgomery stood up, straightening her diplomatic corps uniform. "Perhaps we should try communication again. There might be room for negotiation now that they understand we're not defenseless." Jack shook his head. "I've studied first contact scenarios my entire career. Their approach tells us everything we need to know. They came as conquerors, not explorers. Their message didn't even consider us worthy of diplomatic discussion." Across the room, Captain Olivia Bennett's team was analyzing the brief battle data. "Sir, we've identified weak points in their shield configuration. Their power distribution isn't optimized for rapid attacks from multiple vectors." "That's because they've never needed to be," Jack said quietly. "I'm guessing they're used to overwhelming force against less advanced opponents." In the Zarkonian Imperial Palace on the distant world of Zarkon Prime, Emperor Xorkef received Vrax's message with irritation. The massive ruler's skin rippled with displeasure. "Another primitive world causing problems. This is beneath my attention," he growled to his council. "Send the 7th Pacification Fleet. A standard show of force should suffice." The Grand Minister bowed low. "As you command, Eternal Emperor. The fleet will depart immediately." Back on Earth, humans were doing what they had always done best, preparing for war. Factories worldwide shifted to military production. Soldiers trained for space combat scenarios. Scientists worked around the clock to understand the alien technology from the brief encounter. Dr. Natalie Chen studied the sensor readings from the battle, her eyes widening. Their communication signals are unencrypted. They never expected to need security against us. In a high-security facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Sam Harrison watched as the first human-designed weapons, specifically made to target Zarkonian weaknesses, rolled off the assembly line. "Humanity has been fighting itself for thousands of years," he told his team. "We've perfected the art of war against ourselves. Now we'll show them what that means." Admiral Norris received the news of the approaching Zarkonian fleet with grim determination. Earth's long-range sensors had detected the massive formation, 40 capital ships and hundreds of smaller vessels. "They still don't understand what they're facing," he said to Olivia Bennett as they watched the tactical display. "They think this is a pacification. They're treating us like every other species they conquered." "Their mistake," Olivia replied, her eyes hard. "We've intercepted their communications. They're calling this a minor operation." Jack nodded slowly. "Then let's implement Operation Hornet's Nest. When they arrive expecting to find frightened primitives, they'll discover what happens when you corner humanity." The Zarkonian fleet commander, War Marshal Kraz, approached Earth with supreme confidence. His orders were simple: swift subjugation of a primitive world. He had no idea he was flying into the most elaborate trap ever constructed. War Marshal Kraz stood proudly on his command deck as the Zarkonian pacification fleet entered the Sol system. 40 warships strong, the formation moved with practiced precision toward the blue planet. "Begin standard intimidation approach," Kraz ordered. "Let the primitives see our full might before we demand their surrender." His second in command, Sub-Marshal Grek, bowed slightly. As ordered, the fleet is moving into display formation. On Earth, Director Kate Sullivan coordinated the largest evacuation in human history. Billions of people moved into underground shelters built during the brief weeks since first contact. Sector 7 is now at 86% capacity, and Abe reported. European underground networks are fully operational. Kate nodded, watching the massive screens showing population movements across the globe. Humanity had prepared for disasters before, but never on this scale. "Keep the transportation systems running until the last possible moment," she ordered. "Then seal the entrances." In Earth orbit, Lieutenant Peter Rodriguez floated in the command module of his seemingly ordinary communications satellite. Around him, 20 soldiers waited in silence, each controlling similar satellites, strategically positioned throughout Earth's orbital space. Enemy formation approaching optimal range. His tactical officer whispered through the comm. 3 minutes to Operation Hornet's Nest initialization. Peter checked his weapon systems one last time. The Zarkonians had no idea that half of Earth's communications network was actually disguised battle platforms. "Remember," he told his team, "hit and scatter. Don't try to take down their capital ships. Target engines, weapons, and communication arrays on the smaller vessels." Admiral Norris watched from the EDS Valiant as the Zarkonian fleet approached in a display formation designed to showcase their overwhelming force. "They're spreading out to maximize visual impact," his tactical officer noted, sacrificing defensive positioning for psychological effect. Jack allowed himself a grim smile. "They still think this is about intimidation. Commence Operation Hornet's Nest on my mark." The Zarkonian fleet had just settled into its impressive formation when hundreds of seemingly harmless satellites and debris suddenly powered up, revealing themselves as armed platforms. Before the aliens could react, a coordinated barrage of quantum-tipped missiles struck their outer ships. "We're under attack," Sub-Marshal Grek shouted as damage reports flooded in. From all directions. War Marshal Kraz couldn't believe what the scanners showed. Impossible. Those were not warships. How did they hide such weapons? The human attack struck with perfect coordination. Rodriguez's team targeted the smaller Zarkonian vessels, disabling engines and weapon systems. Meanwhile, Earth's actual military ships emerged from hiding positions behind the moon and in the asteroid belt. Multiple enemy vessels disabled. Olivia Bennett reported to Admiral Norris. "Their formation is breaking." "Press the advantage," Jack ordered. "Don't give them time to regroup." The battle raged for hours. Zarkonian ships, despite their technological superiority, found themselves outmaneuvered by smaller, more agile human vessels, employing unpredictable attack patterns. Peter Rodriguez's ship took a direct hit while disabling the Zarkonian cruiser. As his vessel broke apart, he directed his team to the escape pods. "Keep fighting until the last man," he told them before his communications went dark. On the Zarkonian flagship, Kraz watched in growing horror as a third of his fleet became inoperable. Human tactics made no sense to him. They sacrificed ships to take out larger targets. They used debris as weapons. They seemed to fight with no concern for their own survival. "They're not fighting like a civilized species," he growled. "There's no pattern, no proper battle protocol." "Should we retreat and regroup?" Grek suggested. "No." Kraz slammed his fist down. "Deploy the planetary bombardment vessels. We'll show these primitives the cost of resistance." As the remaining Zarkonian ships regrouped for a direct assault on Earth, Admiral Norris gave the order he'd hoped to avoid. "Activate the quantum shield at full power and launch our counter-bombardment platforms." The battle for Earth had only just begun, and already both sides knew this would be unlike any war the galaxy had ever seen. The Zarkonian bombardment ships moved into position, their massive cannons charging to rain destruction upon Earth's surface. War Marshal Kraz watched with satisfaction as the targeting systems locked onto major human cities. "Let them witness true power," he commanded. "Fire when ready." The order was given. Massive energy beams lanced toward Earth's atmosphere. For a moment, Kraz thought victory was at hand, until a shimmering blue barrier materialized in the path of the attack. The planetary shield absorbed the bombardment, rippling with energy but holding firm. "Impossible," Kraz hissed. "No primitive species has planetary shield technology." In the underground command center, Dr. Alan Wright staggered back from his control station, exhausted but triumphant. The quantum shield had deployed successfully, covering the entire planet. "Shield at 92% capacity and holding," he reported. "But we can't maintain this level of protection for more than 48 hours. Admiral Norris nodded grimly. "That's all the time we need." Colonel Harrison, status of Project Spearhead. In a hidden base beneath the Pacific Ocean, Colonel Sam Harrison supervised the final preparations of Earth's most ambitious military project. Hundreds of engineers worked frantically around a massive weapons system unlike anything humanity had built before. "Final calibrations complete, Admiral," Sam reported via secure channel. "The Graviton Lance is ready for deployment." "You understand there's no going back once we use this," Jack said, his voice heavy. Sam looked at the weapon, a product of reverse-engineered alien technology combined with humanity's own scientific breakthroughs. "They gave us no choice, sir." Dr. Natalie Chen burst into the command center, clutching a tablet. Her weeks of studying Zarkonian communications had finally paid off. "Admiral, I found a critical vulnerability in their fleet coordination system," she explained, pulling up complex diagrams. "Their ships synchronize targeting data through a specific frequency band. If we can flood that band with interference, they won't be able to coordinate their attacks." Jack finished, hope dawning in his eyes. "How quickly can you implement this?" "The system is ready now," Natalie said. "I've been working on it since the first encounter." High above Earth, the battle raged with growing intensity. The Zarkonians had never encountered an enemy that adapted so quickly to their tactics. Human ships seemed to anticipate their maneuvers, striking at vulnerabilities the aliens didn't know they had. On his flagship, Kraz received disturbing news from the Zarkonian homeworld. Emperor Sorketh himself had taken notice of the unexpectedly difficult campaign. "The Emperor demands an update on the Earth situation," the communication officer reported nervously. Kraz felt fear for the first time in his military career. "Tell His Eternity that the situation is complex. These humans employ unconventional warfare techniques that require additional resources to counter." Back on Earth, Admiral Norris implemented the next phase of humanity's defense. Activate Operation Eclipse. Across the solar system, hidden human outposts sprang to life. For years, Earth had secretly established bases on distant moons and asteroids, preparing for potential threats from space. Now these bases launched small, stealthy ships designed for a single purpose: to strike behind enemy lines. Captain Olivia Bennett led the first wave of these shadow vessels. "Stay tight and remember the mission," she told her pilots. "We're not trying to defeat their fleet. We're targeting their supply lines." Meanwhile, Dr. Wright worked frantically to improve the quantum shield's efficiency. "If we can reconfigure the energy distribution, we might extend protection for another day," he told his team, pushing himself beyond exhaustion. Across Earth, humanity's manufacturing capabilities had completely converted to war production. Factories ran day and night, producing weapons designed specifically to exploit Zarkonian vulnerabilities. In orbit, Natalie's communication jamming system activated, flooding Zarkonian coordination frequencies with noise. Almost immediately, their formation fell into disarray. "The humans are jamming our tactical net," Greg reported, panic evident in his voice. Kraz watched as his carefully orchestrated attack patterns dissolved into individual ships fighting without coordination. These are not primitives, he realized too late. There's something we've never encountered before. Major Greg Warren pressed his back against the corridor wall, signaling his team to halt. The Zarkonian supply depot loomed ahead, a massive space station serving as the lifeline for the alien fleet besieging Earth. His squad of 12 Special Forces operators had spent 3 days hiding aboard a captured Zarkonian transport to reach this position. Remember, he whispered into his comm, our primary objective is to plant the disruptors in their fuel processing center. Secondary objective is intelligence gathering. We move on my mark. Greg checked the specially designed weapon at his side. Unlike standard firearms, this one fired projectiles that would pass through Zarkonian shields calibrated to stop energy weapons. 3, 2, 1. Move. The team surged forward with practiced precision. 2 Zarkonian guards appeared at the junction ahead, their eyes widening at the sight of humans inside their secure facility. They never had time to sound an alarm. Back at Earth, Admiral Norris received confirmation that all raiding parties had reached their targets throughout the Zarkonian supply network. Operation Stranglehold is in progress, his communications officer reported. Estimated completion in 2 hours. Jack nodded, turning his attention to the main tactical display. And our friends. Zarkonian Grand Fleet detected entering the outer system, sir. 87 capital ships, hundreds of support vessels. They'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 18 hours. Lisa Montgomery, who had been monitoring diplomatic channels despite the ongoing war, looked up from her station. Admiral, the Zarkonian command ship is broadcasting. They're demanding direct communication with Earth's leadership. Jack straightened his uniform. Put them through. The screen flickered to life, revealing Grand Admiral Zeth, Supreme Commander of all Zarkonian military forces. His gray skin and multiple eyes reflected his species' evolution in the dim light of their homeworld. I am Grand Admiral Zeth of the glorious Zarkonian Empire, the alien announced. Your resistance, while impressive for primitives, ends now. The Grand Fleet approaches. Surrender immediately or face extinction. Jack met the alien's gaze steadily. This is Admiral Jack Norris of Earth Defense Command. We have monitored your approaching fleet. It's not too late to leave. What follows will be on your conscience, not ours. Zeth's mouth tentacles twitched in what humans had learned was laughter. You still issue threats. The Grand Fleet has conquered civilizations far more advanced than yours. That's the difference, Admiral Zeth, Jack replied calmly. Those civilizations weren't human. We warned you once. This is your final chance. The communication ended. Jack turned to his command staff. Initiate final preparations for Operation Quantum Spear. And may God have mercy on us all. 18 hours later, the Battle of Jupiter's Moons began. The Zarkonian Grand Fleet arrived in perfect formation, a display of overwhelming military might that had cowed hundreds of worlds into submission. Their sensors showed Earth's defensive fleet gathered near Jupiter's orbit, a seemingly suicidal position far from their homeworld's protection. Grand Admiral Zeth smiled at the tactical display. They hope to draw us away from their planet. A primitive strategy. Begin the attack sequence. The Zarkonian fleet surged forward, weapons charging. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. Earth's fleet suddenly vanished from their sensors, only to reappear moments later inside the Zarkonian formation. The humans had perfected their quantum displacement drive, technology the Zarkonians had thought impossible for centuries to come. They're inside our defensive perimeter, Zeth's tactical officer shouted. Multiple human vessels within our formation. Commander Diana Foster led the first strike team, her ship materializing directly beside a Zarkonian dreadnought. All weapons, fire at point-blank range, she ordered calmly. Across the battlefield, human ships appeared where they couldn't possibly be, striking at critical systems before jumping away again. The precisely coordinated attack threw the Zarkonian fleet into chaos. For the first time in the 10,000-year history of the Zarkonian Empire, their grand fleet faltered. Ships collided trying to target the appearing and disappearing human vessels. Communication networks overloaded with panic and contradicting orders. Diana's ship took a direct hit as she disabled her third dreadnought. System failures cascaded through her vessel. Engine core critical, her engineer reported. We can't jump out. Diana looked at the Zarkonian flagship visible through her view screen. Set collision course. Full power. Her ship streaked toward the heart of the Zarkonian command vessel, a final act of defiance that would change the course of the war. Commander Diana Foster's ship slammed into the Zarkonian flagship's command deck in a blinding explosion of light and energy. The impact sent shockwaves through the massive vessel, destroying its central control systems and killing Grand Admiral Zeth instantly. What remained of Diana's crew escaped in emergency pods, but she stayed at the helm until the end. On the distant planet of Zarkon Prime, Emperor Ktorketh received the unthinkable news. The Grand Fleet was in retreat. For the first time in living memory, Zarkonian forces had suffered a major defeat. The Emperor's skin turned a pale shade of gray, the Zarkonian equivalent of going white with shock. Impossible, he whispered, tentacles trembling. Bring me the High Command. Now. Throughout the Zarkonian Empire, news of the defeat spread despite censorship attempts. On 17 conquered worlds, subjugated species looked up at the skies with something they hadn't felt in generations: hope. Captain Jason Miller led a small scout ship beyond the solar system, following retreating Zarkonian vessels. His mission was to assess whether the aliens would return with even greater numbers. What he discovered changed everything. Admiral, he reported back to Earth, his face grim on the communication screen. I've intercepted transmissions from the retreating fleet. They're not just reporting to their homeworld. They're sending warnings to garrison forces on at least 12 other planets. Jack leaned forward. Other planets. Sir, the Zarkonians have an empire spanning multiple star systems. They've conquered and enslaved numerous species, and based on these communications, those species are beginning to rebel as news of our victory spreads. In the war room, Lisa Montgomery saw an opportunity. We could reach out to these other species, form alliances. Or, General Martinez interjected, the Zarkonians could return with forces from their entire empire and overwhelm us completely. Jack studied the tactical projections. Either way, we can't wait for them to decide. Prepare the fleet for deployment beyond our solar system. It's time to take this fight to them. On Zarkon Prime, the Imperial Council gathered in emergency session. Elder Counselor Vrass, head of the Empire's diplomatic corps, dared to voice what others only thought. Perhaps we should consider negotiation with these humans, he suggested carefully. They have proven more formidable than anticipated. Emperor Ktorketh's rage filled the chamber. Negotiate. With primitives who dare destroy our ships, who humiliate the Grand Fleet. No, we will deploy the World Breaker. A shocked silence fell over the council. The World Breaker was the Empire's ultimate weapon, capable of shattering a planet's crust. It had been used only twice in their history, both times to make examples of particularly resistant worlds. Back on Earth, Dr. Natalie Chen made another breakthrough while analyzing Zarkonian communication patterns. Admiral, she reported, rushing into the command center. They're preparing something called a World Breaker. Based on the energy signatures mentioned, it appears to be a planet-killing weapon. Jack's face hardened. How long do we have? The weapon needs to be transported from their homeworld. Estimated arrival time at Earth: 10 days. Then we have 10 days to implement Operation Firewall. Operation Firewall was Earth's most desperate contingency plan. A network of hyperspace disruptors placed strategically throughout the solar system. If activated, they would prevent any ship from entering or leaving the system through hyperspace. The technology was experimental, potentially devastating to Earth's own future space travel. As the World Breaker vessel began its journey toward Earth, humanity worked frantically to complete their preparations. Military ships fitted with the experimental quantum displacement drives prepared for the most ambitious attack in human history. Jack addressed the United Earth Council one final time before departing with the fleet. The Zarkonians believe they're bringing a weapon to end this war. They don't realize we're about to bring the war to them. 3 days later, as the World Breaker passed the halfway point to Earth, the hyperspace disruptors activated, trapping the planet killer in normal space. Simultaneously, the human fleet executed a coordinated quantum jump to arrive at a position surrounding the Zarkonian weapon. Admiral Norris opened a channel to the trapped World Breaker. "Attention, Zarkonian vessel. I am Admiral Jack Norris of Earth. We warned you once. You chose not to listen. Now you face the consequences of that choice." The World Breaker, most powerful weapon in the Zarkonian arsenal, found itself surrounded by the Earth fleet. Its commander, Supreme Weapon Master Krell, had never faced a situation like this. The vessel was designed to approach planets unhindered, not engage in combat. "Activate defensive systems," Krell ordered, panic evident in his voice. "Prepare main weapon for defensive discharge." But the humans had studied Zarkonian technology too well. Targeted strikes disabled the World Breaker's main firing controls before they could charge. Within hours, the mighty planet killer was under Earth control, its crew taken prisoner. On Zarkon Prime, Emperor Xorketh received news that broke his spirit. Not only had the World Breaker failed, but Earth forces had liberated 3 subjugated worlds on the Empire's outer rim. Species that had suffered under Zarkonian rule for generations now fought alongside the humans. "Impossible," the Emperor whispered, watching reports flood in from across his crumbling empire. Rebellion had spread like wildfire once word of human victories reached oppressed planets. Admiral Norris stood on the bridge of the EDS Valiant as it approached Zarkon Prime. The massive Imperial capital world loomed ahead, its orbital defenses formidable, but no longer insurmountable. "Open a direct channel to the Imperial Palace," he ordered. "Let's end this." The Emperor himself answered, his once proud posture now diminished. "Have you come to destroy our homeworld with our own weapon, Admiral?" Jack shook his head. "No. Unlike you, we don't destroy civilizations. We've come to offer terms." 2 days later, in the Grand Imperial Hall on Zarkon Prime, the peace treaty was signed. Admiral Norris and Lisa Montgomery represented Earth, while Emperor Xorketh and what remained of his council represented the Zarkonian Empire. The terms were simple. The Empire would release all subjugated worlds, recognize Earth's sovereignty, and agree to oversight of their military capabilities. In return, Earth would not use the captured World Breaker against Zarkon Prime. "You could have destroyed us," Xorketh said quietly to Jack after the ceremony. "Why didn't you?" "Because that's not who we are," Jack replied. "We fight when threatened, but we prefer peace when possible. Remember that about humans." 6 months later, representatives from 27 formerly enslaved species gathered on Earth for the formation of the Galactic Confederation. The massive assembly hall in Geneva buzzed with diverse languages and life forms. Lisa Montgomery, now serving as Earth's first galactic ambassador, called the historic meeting to order. "Today marks a new beginning for all our worlds," she announced. "The Confederation stands for mutual protection, cultural exchange, and the right of all sentient species to determine their own destiny." Admiral Norris, invited to address the assembly, stepped forward. His uniform now bore the new insignia of the Confederation Defense Force. "When the Zarkonians first entered our system, they saw us as primitives because we had not yet spread among the stars," he began. "They mistook our limited presence for limited capability. That mistake cost them an empire." He looked around at the diverse gathering of aliens. "Humanity has learned much from this conflict. We've discovered we're not alone, and that the galaxy needs a new approach to coexistence. The Confederation is not an Earth empire. It is a community of equals, united by respect, and the determination that no species should ever again face the threat of extinction." 50 years passed. On a rebuilt Zarkon Prime, now a thriving member of the Confederation, the Grand Museum of Galactic History opened a new exhibit dedicated to the Human-Zarkonian War. At its center stood a simple audio recording. Admiral Norris's original warning. You have no idea what you're getting into. For your own sake, turn around and leave. School children of various species gathered around the exhibit, listening to the tour guide explain how these words changed galactic history. In a corner of the museum, two diplomatic delegates, one Zarkonian, one from a distant aquatic world, watched a group of human children playing an energetic game. They seemed so harmless, the aquatic delegate observed. The Zarkonian diplomat's tentacles twitched nervously. That's what we thought too. Remember the lesson of our history. When humans warn you to run, you run. Outside the museum, the stars shone on a galaxy forever changed by humanity's emergence, not as conquerors, but as defenders. Not as destroyers, but as builders of a new galactic community where strength protected the weak instead of exploiting them. And throughout that community, one truth was universally acknowledged. Humans were the most dangerous allies and the most merciful enemies the galaxy had ever known.